They tell you that you're free, that your choices are yours alone, that every decision you make is a reflection of your individuality. But what if I told you that this is the greatest illusion of all? What if your thoughts, your desires, your very sense of self were nothing more than the echoes of forces beyond your control? You are not the architect of your mind. You are the product of a system designed to make you believe you are. From the moment you are born, invisible hands begin shaping you. Your culture, your parents, the language you speak, all of it forms a prison so intricate that you never even see the bars. Take morality, for instance. You think you have a personal moral code, but that code was installed long before you had the ability to question it. Had you been born in another time, another place, the things you consider right or wrong would be entirely different. Did you choose these values, or were they chosen for you? Psychologist B.F. Skinner argued that free will is an illusion because all human behavior is conditioned. Every decision you make is not the result of some independent, sovereign self, but rather a response to environmental stimuli. You obey social norms not because you consciously choose to, but because the cost of defying them is too high. You act within a narrow bandwidth of acceptable choices, never realizing that the framework of those choices was set long before you ever had a say. But it goes deeper. Neuroscience has found that decisions are made in the brain before we are even aware of them. In a famous study by Benjamin Libet, participants were asked to move their fingers while their brain activity was monitored. The results were shocking. The brain had already made the decision before the person consciously chose to act. The conscious mind, it seems, is not in charge. It merely rationalizes decisions that were already made at an unconscious level. And yet, you feel free. You feel as though you are in control. Why? Because the illusion is necessary. If you saw the strings that controlled you, if you understood how much of your life is dictated by forces outside yourself, could you function? Could you continue playing the game if you knew, beyond all doubt, that the rules were rigged? This is why they don't want you to wake up. Society operates on the belief that individuals are in control of their choices. Governments, religions, economies, every institution relies on the myth that people are autonomous agents. But autonomy is a story you've been told, not a truth you've discovered. The moment you start to question this, the system begins to tremble. But here's the real question. If free will is an illusion, then who, if anyone, is pulling the strings? And more importantly, what happens when you stop playing along? You believe you are making choices, that every decision is born from your conscious mind. But what if your brain has already decided before you even become aware of it? What if the sense of control you cherish is nothing more than a post-rationalization, a comforting lie whispered by your own mind? In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment that shattered our understanding of free will. He monitored brain activity while participants were asked to flex their wrists whenever they felt like it. The shocking discovery? The brain registered the decision several hundred milliseconds before the person was consciously aware of making it. This means your brain acts first, your mind just catches up later, weaving a story to make it seem as if you were in control all along. But Libet's findings were only the beginning. More recent studies using fMRI scans have shown that brain activity can predict a decision up to 7 seconds before a person consciously makes it. Think about that. Before you even choose between coffee or tea, wear blue or black, speak or stay silent, your brain has already decided. Your consciousness is merely observing, not directing. And yet, the illusion persists. Why? Because evolution has made it necessary. If you truly understood that your thoughts arise from deterministic processes, shaped by genetics, environment, and unconscious impulses, how could you function? How could you carry on believing in morality, responsibility, ambition? Society depends on the illusion of agency because without it, the entire structure collapses. Laws, punishments, rewards. Everything assumes you have the power to choose otherwise. But if neuroscience is correct, then guilt and merit are nothing more than illusions built atop an even greater illusion: the self. Consider this. If your decisions are dictated by neural mechanisms outside of your awareness, who or what are you? Are you the voice in your head narrating your life, or are you the sum total of unconscious computations, a biological machine mistaking itself for a free agent? The deeper you dig, the less you find. There is no you making choices, just a process unfolding, following laws you never wrote. Sam Harris, a neuroscientist and philosopher, argues that free will is not only an illusion, but a dangerous one. If people understood how little control they truly have, the world would change in profound ways. How can we judge criminals if they had no real choice in their actions? How can we take credit for success if every thought and action was predetermined by prior causes? The implications are unsettling, which is why most people refuse to confront them. But here's the paradox. If free will is an illusion, what happens when you finally accept it? Does knowledge of the illusion give you some form of freedom, or does it only tighten the chains, making you more aware of a prison from which there is no escape? You believe you are a singular, autonomous self, an individual with a stable identity, capable of making independent choices. But this too is a carefully constructed illusion, a story your mind tells itself to maintain coherence. Who you think you are is not who you are. In fact, there is no fixed you at all, only a collection of shifting thoughts, unconscious impulses, and neural processes that masquerade as a cohesive identity. Consider this. If you were truly in control, why do you experience intrusive thoughts, urges, and emotions that seem to arise without your consent? Why do you contradict yourself, say one thing and do another, struggle against habits and desires you wish you could change? If you were truly the master of your own mind, why do you feel like a battleground rather than a sovereign ruler? Carl Jung spoke of the unconscious as a vast, unseen force dictating human behavior. He argued that what we call the self is merely the tip of an iceberg, a small conscious portion floating above a deep abyss of instincts, archetypes, and suppressed memories. You do not have an unconscious. You are your unconscious, the voice in your head that narrates your life, that claims ownership over your decisions, is nothing more than a spokesperson for deeper mechanisms you neither control nor fully understand. Modern neuroscience reinforces this unsettling truth. Studies have shown that the brain constructs the illusion of a continuous self by stitching together momentary experiences, much like a film projector, creating the illusion of motion from individual frames. This means that your identity, the you cling to, is nothing more than a fleeting pattern, constantly shifting and adapting. There is no core self, no unchanging essence, just a story being rewritten in real time. Dostoevsky captured this paradox in Notes from Underground, where his protagonist, filled with self-loathing and contradictions, recognizes the absurdity of human consciousness. He realizes that rationality is a thin veil covering a chaotic, unpredictable psyche. And yet, despite knowing this, he cannot escape it. This is the trap of self-awareness. The more you see the illusion, the less you know what to do with it. If the self is an illusion, then what does it mean to want something? Do you truly desire what you think you do, or have those desires been implanted by forces beyond your control? From advertising to cultural expectations, every desire you have has been shaped by external influences, disguised as personal preference. You think you want wealth, success, love. But what if these are simply programmed responses, conditioned by a world that profits from your compliance? The greatest trick ever played was convincing you that you are an independent agent, acting freely. But if you are nothing more than an ever-changing stream of impulses, reactions, and conditioning, can you ever truly wake up? Or is even the act of questioning your autonomy just another predetermined response, a glitch in the system that ultimately leads nowhere? If free will is an illusion, then what happens when you finally see it? Do you gain freedom, or do you lose the very foundation of what it means to be human? The truth is uncomfortable. Most people don't want to wake up. They cling to the illusion because it gives them meaning, direction, and responsibility. To strip that away is to confront the void, to realize that life is not a heroic narrative of personal triumph, but a sequence of mechanistic processes unfolding without a true self at the helm. Nietzsche foresaw this crisis when he declared that God is dead. He wasn't just speaking about religion. He was warning of a deeper existential collapse. If there is no divine order, no ultimate meaning, and no free will, then what is left? Most people choose not to think about it. They distract themselves with work, relationships, entertainment, anything to avoid staring into the abyss of their own powerlessness. They don't want you to wake up because a society built on the illusion of agency cannot function if too many people stop believing in it. But suppose you do wake up. Suppose you accept that every thought, every action, every emotion arises from causes beyond your control. What then? One possibility is despair, the realization that merit, justice, and responsibility are all fabrications. If no one truly chooses their actions, how can anyone be blamed or praised? How can love, morality, or ambition mean anything if they are simply the results of biological and environmental forces playing out like a predetermined script? Yet, there is another possibility: liberation. If you are not truly in control, then neither is anyone else. The expectations, the guilt, the shame that society imposes, all of it loses its grip. The fear of failure, the weight of regret, the need for validation. These only exist if you believe in the illusion of choice. But if you let it go, if you see through it, what remains is something few ever truly experience: pure existence, unburdened by the need to justify itself. Schopenhauer described life as a blind, aimless will, endlessly striving without reason. Yet he also believed that true freedom could be found in understanding this, by stepping outside the illusion and simply witnessing life as it unfolds. This is what Eastern philosophies have echoed for centuries: the dissolution of the ego, the acceptance that thoughts and actions are simply happening without a self directing them. But can you live like this? Can you function in a world that demands belief in choice while knowing that choice itself is a mirage? Perhaps waking up does not mean breaking free in the way you might expect. Perhaps it simply means watching the illusion play out with new eyes, seeing the strings but dancing anyway. And so, the final question remains: if free will is an illusion, what will you do with this knowledge? Or was your response already decided long before you even heard these words?